before you watch this video, I want you to remember one thing. I have some of the flock audit records. What you're about to hear is Cherokee County Sheriff Frank Reynolds responding to concerns about flock cameras at a board, and I think he does it at the Boards of Commissioners meeting is what this is. And I want you to listen very closely to how he describes this technology, because after obtaining the actual audit logs and seeing how his own deputies use flock, I think the public deserves to see the difference between how this system is being described to us and what is actually capable of doing. At this point, Frank Reynolds and his deputies might as well put a tracking device on our cars. Flock isn't literally a GPS device attached underneath your vehicle, but a flock can create a searchable record of where vehicles have been captured across the camera network. We have 100 and what he says 154, I think. It isn't simply taking a Polaroid of the back of a vehicle. The system captures vehicle information that can be searched and filtered. A vehicle doesn't even necessarily need a readable license plate to potentially appear in, vehicle description search. Hell, the audit records I obtained literally show deputies under motorcycle. Think about that. An officer doesn't necessarily have to begin with your tag number to search you. They can search for a vehicle type, review matching captures, identify plates from those results, and then potentially search the historical sightings associated with those particular plates. And you might not even be a suspect. It could just be a random person. And I have an example involving one of Reynolds' own deputies. After Corporal Mills alleged that a motorcycle fled from his flock audit shows him searching for motorcycles. He started with about an hour of data. Then it expanded, search to hours, and then it went on to days, and then I think it was more than 17 days of historical data. This is traffic patrol. Specific plate identifiers were subsequently searched for motorcycles, and one of the vehicles that eventually became part of his investigation belonged to my son's girlfriend. She wasn't the person who allegedly fled. She wasn't accused of committing any crime. Neither was her vehicle, yet Mills assessed approximately 30 days of flock history associated with her vehicle, and not once. Later, when he went looking for her and she wasn't at home, his own audit trails show him searching. Her plate identifier was queried at 6:34 p.m., again at 7 p.m., then at 7:53, at 7:54, at 7:55, 7:56, and 7:57. Oh wait, and 7:59. That is 6 queries of the same vehicle identifier in just 6 minutes and 18 seconds during that final cluster. He was tracking real time. And then right after that, she was eventually located at my house. I think he was knocking at 8:04. So when Sheriff Reynolds tells the public it does not continuously track, I want you to listen carefully. Technically, flock isn't transmitting your vehicle's location every second like a GPS tracker could, right? But when a network of cameras repeatedly captures a vehicle and then stores those observations and then allows law enforcement to search those locations while trying to find someone, the practical capability starts looking a whole lot like tracking, doesn't it? But there's something else in Reynolds' presentation that I really want you to hear. He tells the commissioners and the people listening that flock keeps the information for 30 days. Interesting. He even says that if investigators reach day 30, we cannot access it. He says they couldn't even get a search warrant and go back to flock after that point. Well then, Frank, somebody needs to explain why another entry in the audit records that I obtained and what this is, because those records show another Cherokee County Traffic Patrol officer conducting a query with approximately 78-day search window. Yes, Henry Castle. 78 days. That's more than 2.5 times the 30-day period Reynolds is telling the public about. Now, to be precise, a 78-day query window does not by itself prove that flock actually returns 78 days of stored Cherokee County camera captures. A system can potentially allow a user to request a time frame broader than the amount of data ultimately available, but that's exactly why the public deserves an explanation. Who's watching these people? How is a deputy able to submit a 78-day query if, as Sheriff Reynolds says, the information is inaccessible after 30 days? What data sources were included? What information was actually returned? Was another agency's data involved? I know. Was another retention period involved? And if the answer is simply that the system lets deputies request 78 days, but only returns 30, then explain that to the public too. Because we cannot access it after 30 days. Sounds very different from an audit record documenting a 78-day requested search window, doesn't it? And here's another part I want you to catch. Reynolds acknowledges there are 154 LPR cameras in Cherokee County, including 57 community partner cameras. He says those private partners cannot access the law enforcement data. But then he says, however, we can. Exactly. That is why this conversation matters. This isn't about pretending that Flock has never helped solve a serious crime. Of course, technology can help solve crimes. The question is, how much surveillance power are we willing to give the government over everybody else in order to accomplish that? Because the audit records reveal something every Cherokee County resident needs to understand. You don't even have to necessarily be the suspect for your vehicle's history to be searched. Your vehicle can become an investigative lead just because they put the little letters in. Your historical sightings can be searched, and they are searched. Those searches can be repeated while law enforcement is trying to locate you. And apparently, an officer can even enter a search window extending 78 days into the past. So watch Sheriff Reynolds' presentation for yourself. Listen to what he says Flock is not. Listen when he tells you that the data is gone and inaccessible after 30 days. Then look at what the audit records actually show deputies were requesting from the system. Don't take my word for it. Don't even take his word for it. Look at the record that have been put out to the public that the department tries to keep from us, and then decide for yourself whether Cherokee County residents are being given the complete picture of what this surveillance system can actually do.
Sir. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for your time. My name is Balin Smith. I live at 4190 Hickory Point Drive. I came here to speak about the growing concern from the community about the use of Flock license plate readers. I know this is a sensitive subject right now, and I'd like to put you at ease a bit. I know that the cameras are already here. I know that the county is locked into multi-year contracts, and I know that I can't ask you to wave a magic wand and make them disappear tomorrow. The Fourth Amendment was written to stop the government from keeping a permanent, searchable record of the movements of free people. When every trip to church, every late-night drive, every commute to work becomes data that can be queried without a warrant and searched across a national network, that is no longer public observation. That is a general warrant with better marketing. The Supreme Court has already drawn the line on persistent location tracking. Look at the June ruling handed down in Chaudhry versus the United States, which built upon Carpenter versus the United States in 2018. The capabilities of these networked cameras create an argument for unreasonable search, and there's no warrant required. Yes, the system helps solve cases, and nobody here is against solving crime. But the same system that could find a stolen car also let 3 of our own deputies abuse the system. The situation only proves that this is not a theory from some activist group. The risk is documented, and the events garnered enough attention to embarrass our county nationwide. You commissioners hold the purse and the policy. You have a fork in the road. You can choose to expand the cameras further, or you can choose to start putting real limits on retention, access, and future spending. The second path is the only one that supports the spirit of the Constitution and still looks like America. When the government starts treating every citizen as a potential suspect by default, something fundamental has shifted. If the government wanted us to accept surveillance state, they shouldn't have told us to read Fahrenheit 451 in 1984 in school. Those books were warnings. Flock is using them as instruction manuals. Choose the path of freedom. Look at what other communities just like ours have already done. Take Macon County, North Carolina, or Bandera, Texas as examples. These aren't blue megacities. These are small, conservative, southern towns with our demographics and our values. The same people decided that continuous, warrantless tracking of every vehicle that drives past a pole is a step too far. They voted to end the LPR contracts after residents made it clear the trade-off wasn't worth it. 82 local jurisdictions across the United States have already begun walking back their LPR camera policies after local residents voiced their opinion to their local governments like I'm doing here. I hope you consider the same. Thank you for your consideration, and thank you for the time.
Just have to see the crowd behind me. Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for showing up today. So I do want to address our LPRs. I think there's a lot of misconception about what we're doing here in Cherokee County. Pardon me while I try to find this. So let me begin with my notes here. Pardon me. Well, let me just start by saying I started at the Cherokee Sheriff's Office in 1994. After a short stint in the jail, I went to the police academy and went to the road in about 1995. When I started that program, basically, we didn't have cell phones. You had to carry change in your pocket to be able to call 911 and call home. You didn't have computers. Basically, you had a map book and a set of keys, and you went out there and you tried to do the best you can. Times have changed. We have a lot of technology, and we have technology today, such as LPRs, that save lives here in Cherokee County. I understand the risk between liberty and public safety. That's why I am committed 100%, and I think I've demonstrated that here recently by holding our employees accountable. So when we talk about the Fifth Amendment, or excuse me, the Fourth Amendment, obviously there's some debate about that, but I have not seen the courts suggest that LPRs are a violation of that Fourth Amendment. And so what I have to do as the sheriff is I have to balance those things so that we here in Cherokee County have public safety in the interest of personal liberties. So what we have here is just a few things of what LPR technology is and is not. Yes, it does capture license plates, but it is not a database that we keep indefinitely. It is 30 days. That is a flock policy. And in fact, if we have a case and we're coming up on the 28th day of trying to solve that case, come day 30, we cannot access it. We cannot get a search warrant and go to flock. That LPR is basically taking a Polaroid of the back of that vehicle, which includes the entire back of the vehicle and the license plate. It does not tell us who that person is. It gives us an indicator that that vehicle went past that location, so after a crime has been reported, we can go to that particular area and find if that vehicle has passed by. We have to run that tag through GCIC to be able to obtain who that vehicle belongs to. But as you can see up here, the misconceptions, issue citations. We do not issue citations. It provides investigative leads, but it does not continuously track. It does not tell us anything. We have to go find that information. So it is a tool and a resource to provide efficiency and effectiveness to solve those serious crimes. And again, I go back to the data retention, and I have yet to see where Flock or any LPR system has been sold to a third party. I'd like to see those receipts. Looking at some of the successes here in, or I'm sorry, if we just want to look at LPRs. So you have 154 LPR systems here in Cherokee County, from the sheriff's office to the municipalities and parks and recs. But you also have 57 cameras that are part of our community partners. That's homeowner associations, businesses, medical facilities, private schools, private management companies, and corporations. They cannot access that data. However, we can as part of that user agreement. Some of the successes that we looked at since 2002, you have hit and runs. And again, we can find that vehicle rather quickly. Wanted persons located, 208. Missing persons, that could be somebody with dementia or somebody that has a tendency to wander or is suicidal, and we find that person before tragedy strikes. Sexual exploitation of children, 12. That is significant. Child molestation, again, an egregious crime where time is of the essence. armed robberies, and kidnappings. So here's a snapshot, not of everything, but a snapshot of those successes since 2002. So if we think about going backwards, I think doing away with this technology seriously would take us back 10 years or more. So if you look at some of these numbers up here, the population 2015, 235,000 versus 2026, 304. And you look at solvability and factors back then to now, we've got a 42% arrest rate versus that 14%. And again, accountability and legality. So oversight and accountability. When, unfortunately, we had to terminate and charge our deputies, I immediately called the Georgia Chiefs of Police and the Georgia Sheriff's Association, some of our legislators, and said, we need standardization across the state, across the nation for user agreements, policy, legislation to determine what those things look like so that South Georgia is doing it the way we're doing it here in Cherokee County. That makes sure that we're all on the same field. So I hear the concerns, and I recognize the fact that we need that accountability and that consistency across the nation. And again, we spoke about the Fourth Amendment. So our commitment has been and always will be transparency, accountability, and respect for privacy. I have seen the successes firsthand. I don't know that if I were a victim of a crime that I would want to opt out of any technology available to find my child or my missing loved one, or to solve my crime where somebody has stolen my car or robbed my house or whatever that case may be. I would want you to use every piece of technology available within the scope of the law to do that. And I think that we have demonstrated that here in Cherokee County. No, I'll skip there. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate that.